Jared Weiss, The Athletic. Renowned journalist Terry Rozier apparently called you right before the pick, and you said you were going to draft a guard, ended up drafting Bob Williams, and you said that you were looking at the medical stuff. He fell much further than projected. What made you confident that he would be the right pick for you?
Well, we thought he was the best player available. We look at the medical stuff of everybody, and I was obviously joking with Terry about the guard position, but I had no idea it was on live, whatever live it was. I thought he was FaceTiming me. I had no idea, but anyway, that is sort of funny. No, we're excited about Robert, and we felt like he was the best player available, and think he's a great fit for our team.
How many, Brian Robb, Boston Sports Journal, how much did you get to see Robert over the course of the college season? I know you saw him, I think, in Arizona against Ayton, but were there any other times you saw him live? And what did you see in those performances?
I think I saw him twice live, and a few times last year as well. But our staff saw him a lot more than that. He's a player that we like coming into this draft process. He's a rim protector and a rebounder, and a guy that can play above the rim on both ends of the court. And we don't have much of that. We have a little bit of that, but not what he can do. So his abilities to protect the rim and rebound and run the floor, I think, are some of his greatest traits, and we can use those.
Mark James Nesson, he was projected to be a lottery pick last year. Stock fell this year. There's some scouting reports out there about lack of motivation. How much does that concern you?
We do our own background checks. We don't really read what everybody else says, but when you say people are projected, like that was before he even went through the draft process, so I never really believed that anyway. I think that the game is changing a little bit, but as far as having skilled bigs, we have skilled bigs on our team right now. But Robert, like I said, he brings an element to the game, and he's very young, and I think he still has upside. I think there's parts of his game that have been untapped so far, as young as he is. But like I said, he can provide rim protection and rebounding, and for sure, we know that.
Fred Katz, Mass Live. You kind of maybe just alluded to it, but I mean, obviously he's been billed as a rim diving center and a shot blocker and all that. Brad, though, talked about how he thinks he can be a more versatile guy on the perimeter as a passer and a ball handler. How do you scout that and try to project that without him actually seeing him do that in games?
We have seen him do that in games. We've seen him handle the ball on the perimeter. We've seen him get rebounds and push the ball up the court. I mean, there's moments in his career where we've seen him make fantastic passes, like just touch passes that are beautiful. So we see the potential in him being a guy that plays in Brad's system, that does handle the ball some. He uses his bigs a lot to do dribble handoffs out on the perimeter.
Adam Jones, Sports Hub. He was suspended a couple of games to start the year at Texas A&M. Background checks. What about your background check made you comfortable?
Well, you never know everything about everybody, obviously, but we're comfortable with who he is, and a lot of the people that we've talked to as coaches, some teammates. Trainers, we check with a lot of people that are familiar with him, and everybody likes Robert. And I know that he's not perfect, but most players aren't, and we think his upside is he's got a great upside. So we're very excited to have him. I mean, I'm not trying to defend our reason for drafting him, but we find that he's going to be a good player. We like what we found on his background checks.
Bob Schramm, the Citizen. Danny, did you think, stepping back and looking at the entire draft, did you think that this was a talented group, one of the more talented groups that you've seen in the last couple of years?
I thought the draft was good. I mean, I don't think it was great. I don't think it was bad. I think it was a good draft.
Danny, to your left, Mark D'Amico, Celtics.com. When you look at a player, like you talked about, he can rebound, he can defend the rim right now. A player like that, how much easier is it for him to fit in on a team that has so much skill already?
Yeah, I mean, I think with all young players at whatever position, I think it's easy to play with veteran players that know how to play, and a coach that knows what your strengths and weaknesses are and puts you in chances where you can succeed, places where you can succeed. I think that'll help him tremendously. He doesn't have to try to do too much out of the gate. He can do what he does well, while his game evolves into something more.
Danny, Gary Wash from Boston
Gary,
Globe. Hey, good to see
seen you
Danny.
before, Gary.
All right. This is the latest you've drafted in a long time. I mean, were you tempted to call? I mean, were you itching when you've had the third pick the last couple of years? Were you kind of itching when that, the lottery? Were you itching to do something because you're kind of used to this? What was the early draft like? How close were you to getting something done or moving up? And then once Williams dropped, Brad said about the 17th pick, you kind of felt like he was coming to you. Did you just kind of like take your phone and, take it off the hook, or what? Turn off your cell phone? What'd you do?
No, we're still following the draft in case he doesn't slide all the way to us. We're prepared to draft other players. Leading into the draft, we knew we weren't getting up in the draft. We'd spent the last few weeks and trying to figure out what the cost was to get up to the top of the draft, and we knew going into today that it was very, very unlikely if that was going to happen. So we were preparing for the 27th pick in the draft, and we were preparing for opportunities to move up, not all the way to the top of the draft, but somewhere in the middle of the draft. And even we were preparing for opportunities if guys that we didn't like and moving backward in the draft. And that's the same thing we do every year in the draft, is we're prepared any way that any situation that comes up. From 27?
No, just.
We talked about it, but our roster. We don't need more young players really. We feel good about adding one, a positional player that has something that we don't have, that does something that we don't have. Yeah.
Danny, Mike Petralia, CLNS Media. The fact that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been as productive as they have been as young players, does that give you any comfort knowing that, Robert can come into this environment both with young established contributors and veterans like Al, Kyrie, and Gordon and be successful right away?
Well, I mean, whenever you draft in guys, you draft them that they're not going to take over your franchise. I mean, Jason Tatum was a little bit unique. We brought Jaylen Brown along slow. We brought Terry Rozier in the same way. Those guys had opportunities to play as young players, but they don't have to try to do too much. And so Robert will have opportunities to play, but it'll depend on how well he plays, how much he does. And obviously Jason was sort of thrown into the fire last year with the injury to Gordon early on, but that wasn't what the initial plan was.